Howdy guys, Attorney Walter Hnot. I want to get right into this video. Just a couple of basic things. Please remember to like, subscribe, and leave 5-star reviews. Wow, that hair is all over the place. Now, with that, wow, what's going on with that little guy right there? All right, now with that said, there is a special link to go ahead and leave 5-star reviews because that is super incredibly important for me. I'm going to put it right into this section down here. Okay, boom, there you go. Now, I want to go into this. These are the 5 ways. And, remember, this is the big Thursday live. Every Thursday we go live, 8 to 10 p.m. We answer questions. I do an intro. We answer some questions. We get an update on what's going on with the war in the world, Ukraine specifically with Russia. Here we go. These are the 5 things, the 5 ways your benefits may actually increase going into 2023. Some of them are absolutely certain. Some of them, de facto, you're going to get the increase, but some of them are things that I'm expecting now as a result of things not going so well with the economy. All right, let's go right to it. This is specifically from 3 ways from the Motley Fool. The 3 ways your Social Security could increase in 2023. I added 2 more. Let's read right into it. Remember, this is from Katie Brockman, June 29th, 2022. This came out yesterday. Get ready for larger monthly payments next year. Millions of older Americans rely on Social Security to pay the bills in retirement. While your benefits were never designed to be your sole source of income, which is a crappy way of them saying that. Why do they pay the SSDI people that amount if the SSDI people can't work and that is the sole main source of their income? So that phrase that they use there is a little bit bullshittery, but anyways, they can go a long way toward making ends meet because they're increasing the benefits next year. Here we go. In 2022, the average retiree collects around $1,657 per month in benefits, according to the Social Security Administration. But there are a few reasons you could see larger checks in 2023. Number 1, higher cost of living adjustment, right? Most years, seniors receive slightly higher payments as part of the annual cost of living adjustment, or COLA. 2022, Social Security saw a 5.9% raise, which is the biggest increase in decades, 4 decades. Because the COLA is linked to inflation, next year's adjustment will likely be even larger, while the official data won't be released until later this year because they're still collecting the months. Some experts predict it could be as high as 8.6%. They're now saying it might even reach all the way into the 10%. But remember, the higher that number gets, the more money you get, but it's actually worth less. So you're getting less of what it should be worth because the dollar is devalued significantly, which means you, the Social Security recipient, albeit you're getting more money, are actually getting screwed over because everything is much more expensive than the extra money you get. Cool. Number 2, higher maximum benefit amount. There's a maximum amount you can collect from Social Security, and it changes every year. In 2022, the maximum is $4,194 per month. To receive this amount, you'll need to have earned a substantial income throughout your career, work for at least 35 years, and delay benefits until you reach the full maximum retirement age, which is 70, not 67, 70. Remember, you can keep waiting after 67 until you hit 70 to fully maximize your retirement. But remember, that's for people who expect to live to 1,001. It's unclear exactly what next year's maximum benefit amount will be, but from 2021 to 2022, it increased close to $300 per month. It's safe to say that with inflation as high as it is, we'll likely see an even bigger boost in 2023. While most seniors won't qualify for the max benefit, those who do could receive a hefty bonus next year. Although realistically, those people who are getting that $4,000 a month means nothing to them. You know what I mean? Like they have millions and millions. $4,000 a month is like, it's kind of like their food stamps. You know what I mean? Number 3, higher earning limit. Okay. If you continue to work in any capacity after claiming Social Security and you haven't reached your full retirement age yet, your benefit could be temporarily withheld. In 2022, the earnings limit is $19,560 per year and $51,960 if you're reaching your FRA this year. If you earn more than that while receiving Social Security, your benefits will be either partially or entirely withheld until you reach your FRA. Next year, though, those limits will likely be higher. That means you can earn more, so you can work more and earn more while you're retired without having your benefits withheld, leaving you with larger checks each month. Now, this is a little outro from Motley Fools. Here we go. The reality is that most Social Security changes this year are linked to adjustments in inflation because they're rampant and terrible. So while you likely receive larger checks in 2023, that won't necessarily increase your buying power. As prices continue to soar, seniors have actually been losing purchasing power over the years, even with the annual raises. In fact, since 2000, Social Security benefits have lost roughly 40% of their buying power, according to the report from the Senior Citizens League, which we've covered many times. That said, when prices are high and many seniors are struggling to pay bills, every little bit counts. And an increase to benefits could make it easier to stay afloat financially in retirement. Okay, so let's talk about this real quick. The bottom line is that's the first three. I want to add a few here. Number two would potentially be a Biden boost or some sort of Biden supplemental boost to those who are receiving Social Security benefits. And the reason why is that Biden has a problem. He's got a problem running directly into the midterms, which is he is right now financially the second most disastrous president when it comes to essentially the economy. Jimmy Carter is number one. His numbers for approval are also, he's the silver medal, again, not number one, but he's the silver medal. The second most disastrous approval rating right now in America, Jimmy Carter still number one. So the bottom line is this. He's got a PR problem. He's got a public relations issue. People do not have a good connection with President Biden at this point. I mean, there are still people that will send me emails. I'll be like, you don't get it, Walter. You're actually living in the best economy you've ever known. And I'm sitting there going, bro, I'm not going to join your cult today. Maybe tomorrow. Depends on what Kool-Aid you're selling with it. But the bottom line is, it's obviously a horrible, horrible situation. I did another video explaining why I was so afraid because of the Chinese currency that they're coming out with, that they're going to use with all these other nations, thereby getting rid of the U.S. international trading tender, which is the dollar. So the big thing that I'm worried about here is that mostly those on fixed income are going to face extreme hardship. So I think there might be a Biden boost because going into the midterms rather, in November, he's likely trying to go ahead and boost and make sure those people, those voters, are happy for the Democrats. And I think one of the big things you have to realize is that Democrats obviously were not very happy with, especially younger females. And you remember with the whole Roe v. Wade thing, I'm not getting into the people support this or people support that. That's not what the channel is about. But the point is, with the whole Roe v. Wade thing, a lot of women, especially in their teens, their 20s, the 30s, and the 40s, basically all the women that are essentially making kids, were extremely upset online, or at least that's what they're producing as media, because they feel shortchanged because the federal government changed essentially their definitive right federally across the land, including all states, to be able to have some sort of abortion. And as a result of that, a lot of the women who are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, even 100s are much more in support of essentially the whole changing of Roe v. Wade. So, and it's ironic because you have the Christian entity, which is too old to have children, being very happy, versus the women who are actually having the children in that generational capacity to go ahead and make kids. And you have this battle going on between them. So I think the Democrats are heavily relying on essentially Roe v. Wade to be the thing that pushes women significantly over to the Democrats, which I think they'll be very successful with. I think that the Christian vote obviously is going to continue to pump the Republican side up quite a bit. But at the end of the day, it's going to be interesting because Biden's little groups, right? He collects a lot of little groups. Like the Christian group usually votes to the Republicans. So the big chunk groups usually go Republican. But then a lot of the smaller groups, when you go into minorities versus the lesbian trans community, the individuals that don't essentially fit into those massive groups. He gathers those groups super well. That is Biden's, that's his, essentially voter base that can really help him out. So as a result of that, what you are looking at is a problem. President Biden now has to essentially find a way to get Social Security disability people, Social Security retirement people on his docket, if you will, on his voting platform. And I think what's going to happen is he knows the retirement people are 60, 70 million strong. He knows the disabled people are, SSI and SSDI around 16, 17, 18 million strong, somewhere in there in the numbers. Those are presidential changing, like election changing levels of people. That number of people is literally capable of changing an election. So when you look at just the midterms, which is obviously smaller than a presidential election, those particular groups have capacity to, sway something this way or sway something that way. What I'm thinking is that you have to look at which groups are the easiest to target with the lowest hanging fruit, meaning which groups are the easiest to buy or potentially, wave into your party by giving them something small that they can go ahead and nibble on to make them happy to vote for your particular party. So one of the big things is that the Supreme Court came out with obviously the gun rights option, which was amazing and excellent, and that was really, really great because now a lot of the disabled and the retired have the option to go ahead and be safer because they have more concealed carry capacity in those states where they were banned from having it. I know a lot of disabled people. I know a lot of retired people who tried to apply for basically some sort of license to conceal carry in the state of Massachusetts, New York, California, New Jersey, and they weren't able to get it. And it was really sad because, at the end of the day, these retired people in wheelchairs, these retired people with walkers, these disabled people with canes and crutches, they're not running away from an attacker. Like, they are the ultimate version of stand your ground or die. So I was really happy to see that change come through essentially for them. But anyways, so I think Biden might try to do some financial boost to go ahead and push or present the retired / disabled with an in for him to get their vote. Because let's call it like it is. The lesbian, the gay community, that's a tough community to figure out exactly where they stand on a particular issue as issues evolve, because that particular group, and what they want and what they're promoting and what they're chanting, it changes quickly. And I think that one of the things we have to look at is right now, President Biden is running out of time to figure out exactly what low-hanging fruit he can take and sell. And that's a big thing. That's something I don't understand. Politicians spend a lot of time trying to figure out when they lead these campaigns. At the end of the day, I got to be honest with you, Biden's in a tough spot. If we have a chess game, he's right now in the end game, and the end game, he's down a couple pieces. So it's one of those tough things. So I think there might actually be, as number 4 for this top 5 list, a Biden boost or some sort of check to push those middle ground people into essentially the Democrat-based party. Now, another one is that, and we just saw Commissioner Keisha Kazi, I'm going to do a video on it, begin the process for upgrading or increasing what attorneys get paid for disability benefit representation, because we were limited to that $6,000. But the inherent problem with that is that now that she's raised it to that $7,200, it's still A, not enough to represent people for disability benefits, and B, it's still based off of the original flawed system, which is the longer it takes, the more the attorney makes. It shouldn't be based on that. It should be based on what the attorney completes, the motions, the briefs, all that, and submits, the more the attorney makes. That's how it should be, set up. All right, anyway, so let me go through this real quick. Number 5, the 5th reason right here. I think Biden will be pushing for, through the midterms, and then basically obviously going into the 2024 presidential election session, and that whole setup and yada yada. I think he'll be pushing for the removal of restrictions on retirement benefits, Social Security disability insurance benefits, and SSI benefits, along with the other ones like disabled child benefits, adult child benefits, widows benefits, auxiliary benefits. I think he'll start allowing some of these major categories, which is benefit stacking. That's where if you have to take 2 types of benefits, you're allowed to go ahead and stack them. They're not reduced, but you can full on stack them. One of the only few things that we have right now that's fully stackable would be, for example, disability benefits in the civilian realm, SSDI benefits or potentially even SSI benefits, and VA-based disability benefits. So, what you do is you can actually stack your VA benefits with essentially your SSDI benefit. SSI benefits, they take away some, but SSDI benefits and VA benefits, those are fully stackable. So you've got all of your, military disability benefits, and then you can stack directly across on top, your SSDI benefits. So that's one of the options. Another option is that he will allow potentially 2 options when you could only pick one. So instead of this, you only get 1 benefits, he could start to open up the benefits to this twofer category where basically, okay, well, this one's available to you and this one's available to you. Back in the day or currently, you'd have to choose. But I think what he might try to do is allow you to go ahead and get the two options available. Number three, allow reduction in limitations. So one of the big problems that a lot of people face is that there's always some reduction that they have to deal with, whether they're going to get taxed at this rate, whether they're only allowed to have so much in the bank at this rate, whether they're only allowed to do so much at this rate, whatever. There's always some sort of restriction, game playing, and it always kind of screws over the American just trying to have a little bit more. He might play with those numbers to make it more beneficial for the average American. Now, number four of my number five category is tax ceiling on earnings. I think what he'll probably have to do is raise the tax ceiling because, if you go back 60, 70 years, one person in the family worked in the traditional family, which is the male worked, the female raised the kids. It worked because the male made enough money. Now we're at the point where basically you have to work your entire life. Even when you go to retire, you have to work your entire life. You have to have some sort of income coming in. And as a result of that, every person has to work. Every female has to work. Every male has to work. This is a sign of poor management, which, as I always say, fire your politicians. They have not put you in a good place. In the chess game, you lost. So the whole thing here is, I think what he's going to have to do is make it more enticing for those individuals who are currently working in the retirement stage to go ahead and be able to earn more without it taking away from their Social Security benefits. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a moment real quick and go ahead and open up the phone line so that we can start taking some phone calls. That is the phone line right there. We're going to go ahead and take a couple of phone calls, get this thing rolling. I hope all is well. Let's see what we got. Okay, so this is how this works, because we got a lot of new people here and then there and then yada yada who are joining this channel. The way it works is every Thursday, 8 to 10 p.m., and this is the point, I start answering phone calls where I answer specifically any question you want to ask me about disability law, or I run hearing questions with you. Most people just have some question. They don't want to run hearing questions with me. Some people do, but mostly it's just people have a question about the benefits, what's going on, etc., things like that. All right, so what I'm going to do is look at this real quick. Looks like we did miss one call so far. I'll try calling it real quick and see if we can get this ball rolling to get this thing going. Hold on real quick. Let's see what we got. Okay. Let's see if we can get it connecting. Of course, I always leave it off the speaker. Hi, this is Attorney Walter Hnot. We are live on YouTube right now. Remember to use a fake name throughout this process. Would you like me to answer a specific question, or would you like me to go ahead and basically run hearing questions with you?
I would like to ask a specific question, Walter. I saw your program regarding the Ticket to Work program, the benefits versus the 9-month work period trial, and also the 36-month extended trial work period. My question is, between the two programs, which do you think offers better benefit support in terms of not losing your SSDI and SSI, which I'm currently receiving? They seem to be two programs, but I wonder which do you consider to be more protective? So I'm a person who's over 60. Thank you.
Absolutely. So what you're really asking me is, on the chutes and ladder game, how do I constantly capture the ladders as I move down the years with which programs I can utilize at the right time? So the best way to basically set yourself up for the win is to figure out a plan where you're going to use your 9 months of trial work period on, month 5, month 6 of your trial work period months, that 9 months where you can earn over the, SGA $1,350. Start developing and finalizing your plan for a long-term job option. So you're going to go Ticket to Work, or you're going to go 9-month trial work period. And then about midway through that, you're going to start to contact the SSA field office to speak with the regional manager to start signing up for what's called a trial to work program. That gives you the most bang for the buck option. So, let's say you want to earn the most that you can. That's going to allow you to earn the most potentially that you can without having your benefits being taken away. So essentially, you're going to sign a contract, 5-year contract with the SSA over your intention to go ahead and work this job and earn this amount and yada, yada. And that will be your 5-year agreement with the local SSA field office, which will allow you to receive your benefits and work that job in your transitional period. So that gets you basically 9 months plus your 5 years, it cuts out the whole extended period of eligibility for the 36 months. But that really is just like a small, that's like a side program. That's more of like you're just going to earn a very tiny amount, so you get to keep your benefits. That's more of a thing where you're just earning a little bit and not earning over SGA, so you get to keep that little bit, so that they're hoping that you'll work your way out. But the real program you want to go into is after your 9-month trial work period into the Ticket to Work program, because that is your contractual agreement with the Social Security Administration, for a long term, full 5 years, to keep your benefits while earning basically a check, so that you become, independent beyond needing those disability benefits.
I see. That's a very good analysis of the situation. I am 63. I am just 4 years out from my full retirement age, and I'd like to do some type of work on the days or the periods that I feel okay, but not necessarily be tethered to a job where if I can't come in, they'll fire me. So based on, what you're explaining and the information that I was able to discern online, it seemed like if I combine the two programs, then I hit my full retirement age. But I wanted your opinion in terms of which way you think is best. And based on what you're saying, it seems like this would basically take me to the FRA, the 9 months, because that's almost a year. And then if you add 5 years, that's 6 years. And I only need 4 years to get to, my almost age 67. So am I analyzing that correctly and basically, giving you back exactly what you said correctly?
Now, so if you were 60 years old and transitioning almost, within a short period of time into the Ticket to Work program, they'd probably be more into it. But the problem is, at your current age, they're going to be less likely to want to sign essentially a Ticket to Work program, because they know that you're coming up into retirement. And if you're SSDI, they're expecting you to take it, the end of 66, 67 years old. So, you might get a regional manager at the local field office who's not willing to sign you up as a good fit for the Ticket to Work program. And so, all right, so let me ask you this. You said you were SSDI and SSI, correct?
Correct.
So with SSI, you're always going to run into the issue where basically anything over the $85, 65 plus the 20, they take away $2 for every $1 from, basically money above the $85. So how much money extra are you looking to earn in a job going forward? Like, what are we looking at per month?
Actually, I think I more than likely, based on my health, would stay under the SGA. I don't really see myself being able to return to a full-time job, but I would like to have a greater level of independence and, of course, be able to better financially support myself.
All right, so if you're going to be earning under the SGA, you know what I mean? The reality is I would use the extended period of eligibility, because you want to use Ticket to Work when you're going to earn. You're going to earn your way out of benefits. You're going to earn so much more than your benefits offer that after 5 years, they pull the ticket, and, you're basically good and rolling and you're in the field of work. In your case, if you're just earning under, then don't be under the restrictive, guidance or the restrictive contract that you'll have to sign for a Ticket to Work program, and just do your thing and use that extended period of eligibility for those 36 months. So you get 9 months where you can earn big money, and then you get 36 months for extended eligibility where you have to earn under SGA. That's probably your best option if you intend to earn under the SGA, unless, keep in mind, if you are going to be self-employed, the SSA always gets to play with that little option where they decide what your work is actually worth, because a lot of self-employed people work way more than what they should actually be paid for their work as a result of them owning a company.
Yes, in fact, that's what I was looking at, some type of self-employment, because clearly at my age, it would be more difficult to assimilate back into the job market. And frankly speaking, at my age, I really don't want, anyone hovering over me like that. And I thought about, the restrictive guidelines with respect to the Ticket to Work. You're supposed to sign up with a contractor and basically you work with a partner. And I don't feel that I would really want someone guiding me that way. I prefer to be self-directed. Before I became ill, I was in sales and, I was basically my own boss. So that's my calling. But I, didn't know which way to go. So basically, you're saying unless I'm really going to be earning a lot of money, basically stay with the 9-month trial work period and the 36-month extended period.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to be earning under SGA, that would be the simplest option. Just be careful with the types of earnings you pull in. Also, some earnings are not countable, so learn what those are, so you can kind of play the game a little better because you are attached to SSI. So you can see a reduction in your benefits for SSI because over that $85, every $2 they remove one. So and here's the thing too, you're receiving probably a portion of SSI. So you're probably getting anywhere from like 500 to 600 to 700 dollars of SSDI, and then probably the rest is SSI to get you somewhere around $800 to $900. So keep in mind.
That's correct, right?
Yeah.
I'm really very little. I'm receiving very little SSI, mostly SSDI.
Yeah, so that's a concurrent approval, or what we call hybrid program allowance. But basically, what that is, they're supplementing your SSDI benefits to get you to a livable benefit. And what sucks about it is that you only have a small amount of SSI, which means potentially, if you earn too much, you could wipe out your SSI benefit. And it's one of those gigs where some people in that position would rather just sit at home than basically work and wipe out their SSI benefits.
That's exactly right. It's a very small amount, but clearly it's better than nothing. If I wipe it out, then I could wipe out the Medicaid that's attached to it, but it's so little. It's easy to, with some type of work, actually overcome the amount that SSI has given me. And I think there are special rules for Medicaid that if you are working under the guidelines with Social Security, you don't lose it, at least in the state that I live in. If I'm wrong, correct me. I tried to do some research on my own online, and that's what I was able to come up with, because I didn't want to lose my health insurance. And I am not positioned to go into the, what they call the marketplace, even if it's Obamacare, what they call. I don't think I would be able to afford a monthly premium. And who wants to pick up a person who has been disabled for a number of years? They would consider you high risk, and I'm an older person.
Did you buy into Medicare when you were found disabled?
I have Medicare. No, I didn't buy in. Basically, Medicaid pays for the monthly premium. So I have Medicare as my primary.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I mean, so you just have to be careful, because at the end of the day, you don't want to lose your SSI, because there's the attachment to the Medicaid, which is going to affect your Medicare option through the SSDI Title II benefits. So, it's one of those gigs where that's why these hybrid people who are essentially receiving SSI and SSDI benefits end up getting so screwed by the system. It boosts you just enough to be able to have the bare basics to survive. But then if you want to work a little bit more, you almost have to be forced into this ticket to work program, because, let's call it like it is. You need to be able to keep whatever benefits you can,
That's exactly right, Walter, because I'm in a situation where, I have to keep what I have. It sure is not a lot of money, but it keeps me off the street, but you cannot thrive on it. So since I am older and I am closer to the full retirement age, I just wanted to find out, basically without losing the benefits, what is the best way I could financially optimize my situation. Last and second question is, I had applied last year for survivor benefits.
Mm-hmm.
I actually became ill starting around age 15 or 16. But when I when I was approved for Social Security disability in my 20s, I knew nothing about survivors program. Last year, it seemed like the judge who was assigned to my case really, really wanted to help me. But I didn't have any representation, and I decided to withdraw. My question to you is there a way to essentially, someone told me that I could potentially ask for my case to be reopened without necessarily having to start all over again. The documents that I had with respect to my disability, my health problems before the age of 22, they don't exist anymore, because hospitals only keep records for 7 years, and we're talking about decades. But my alma mater, they said that they basically may have records showing that I had to take a medical leave of absence due to illness. So is that an actual possibility that I could call Social Security and ask to have that case reopened, because it would have resulted in a $200 a month increase based on my parents' record as a survivor of them. Unfortunately, my parents have passed.
How long ago was it that you had the decision withdrawn or rendered for the survivor's benefits? Like, how long ago was that?
It was about 8 to 9 months ago.
All right, so
last October.
Okay, so you're getting into the iffy territory. The statute that you would use, because you received a denial and it was withdrawn. It was withdrawn, right?
Right, it was withdrawn by me.
You might be able to argue, because you didn't know what you were doing, that you should have requested a denial, and then you could potentially use the 4.911 statute to try and help you to extend the appeal period forward. But realistically,
4.9.
Yeah, 4.911, like 911. Think 404, which is what most of the statutes come from for this. 404.911. That basically would be your avenue. It's a really shitty avenue, but I would immediately call them tomorrow and request that basically you be applied for those widow's benefits. And then once you're applied, try and find somebody who'd be willing to go ahead and reattach to the original claim if you can, but they're most likely not going to. But at the same time, you know what I mean? It's not a massive loss, but I would absolutely go ahead and call them tomorrow and reapply to be able to access those widow's benefits if you're eligible.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
But thank you. I appreciate you very much with your answers, and your show is very informative. It really is.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Walter.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Okay, you too, Walter. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye. Okay. So, guys, we're going to take another call real quick. Let me see real quick. Let me see. Boop. I'm going to call this one. Here we go. You guys know how it works. We wait till it rings, and then we pick up the phone and scare the person as quickly as we can. So here we go. It is connecting. Hi, this is Attorney Walter Hnot. We are live on YouTube. Would you like me to answer a specific question or run hearing questions with you? And remember to use a fake name throughout this process. How can I help you?
Yes, I'd like to ask you a question.
Sure. How can I help you?
I currently is in partnership on an LLC business with my wife. Okay. And if I sold the business, would it affect my benefits?
What kind of benefits are you receiving?
SSDI.
So yeah, I mean, it's going to hit you for 1 month because you're going to have a massive income coming in. But then basically those funds will turn into a resource the next month. And at that point, they won't really affect you. So you'll get an overpayment for 1 month. But other than that, it's not really going to affect you much, So, I mean, how much are you expecting to sell this business for? Is it like $10,000, or is it like $100,000, or is it like $1 million plus?
I'd like to say $1 million, but it's probably about 100,000.
Okay, so yeah, in that case, taking a 1 month hit where you lose your SSDI benefits for that 1 month, not a big deal. Once you receive that income, it transfers into a resource the next month, and then you're fine.
Oh, okay. So after I sell the business, that 1 month I won't have any benefits.
So the way it works is you'll still receive them. They'll just go ahead and hit you with an overpayment. I mean, you could then submit a 632 and then try and get it waived.
Okay. Okay. What about the medical? It's just going to carry on after the next month after.
No, they'll it's only for 1 month. They'll still keep you attached to your Medicare. You'll be fine there.
Oh, just for 1 month. Okay. Sounds like a deal here.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Walter. You answered my question.
Absolutely, good sir. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Have a happy 4th of July.
Thank you too, good sir. All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Aloha.
Okay, hi, this is Attorney Walter Hnot. We are live on YouTube. Would you like me to go ahead and answer a specific question, or would you like me to go ahead and run hearing questions with you? And remember, please use a fake name throughout this. How can I help you?
Sorry, specific question.
Sure, good sir.
I had a waiver attached to my SSDI,
Mhm.
and it was associated with a overpayment from years ago. Back in 2002, I originally applied for SSDI, and I was accepted. And I went on the ticket to work,
Mhm.
and there was a error somewhere. I can't remember. It was so long ago. Anyway, I went back to work, and I got off SSDI. Excuse me. And up until 2019, I had a shoulder injury combined with my severe back injury.
Mhm.
Again, it failed. So I had to reapply for SSDI, and within 2 weeks, I was accepted.
Mhm.
And I hired an attorney,
Mhm.
and he was amazed. Oh, you're accepted. He kind of got mad because it only took me 2 weeks.
Mhm.
And I got a letter from SSDI.
Mhm.
Guess what? 0 payments because you owe us back pay
Mhm.
overpayment from the first time.
Mhm.
So, needless to say, my attorney was long out of the picture. So I applied myself for waivers.
Yeah.
Yada, yada, yada. Long story short, all of a sudden, through my SSA online, I look and it's like, wow, it says you have a waiver attached to this overpayment. So I started getting my payments.
Mhm.
My question is, how long? I never got a letter or nothing. All of a sudden I look online and it says you got a waiver attached to this overpayment. I didn't get no back pay because of this, naturally.
Mhm.
But my question is, how long? They didn't send me nothing. I filled out all the forms saying why I request the proper forms. I did all this research myself. I have a law enforcement background. I was an investigator for years. But how long will this waiver be attached until I'm 61 now? How long will this waiver be attached?
So when you say attached, do you mean being effective? Do you mean removing the amount that's due? Do you mean essentially not being effective and just going along for the ride? What do you mean by attached?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm getting, I get pretty good amount, $1,500 some dollars a month,
Mhm.
SSDI, and I get my Medicare, the $170, of course, taken out, and I get our Medicaid through the state,
Mhm.
and I pay my supplemental plan.
Mhm.
But instead of the $1,500, and then when I click on it, it says you have an overpayment, but then it says there's a waiver associated with this overpayment.
Mhm.
And that's all it says. I mean,
Yeah.
I never got no paperwork or nothing from SSA saying why, who, when will it end, or when will it start? It didn't start, or I didn't get nothing.
Okay, so you're wondering.
My question is, when will this ever end, or I mean?
So your question is
it a permanent waiver or what? I don't know.
When
I'm almost afraid to call them and ask them and say, hey, is this going to end tomorrow or what? I don't want to get,
right.
Open the closet door and say, oh, don't open that closet door, if it were McGee and Molly deal,
Yeah, no, I gotcha. So your question is, when is that waiver going to be adjudicated, judged, and then a decision rendered as to essentially, whether or not they're approving it, reducing the overpayment, going to process it, etc. So here's kind of the bottom line. Oh wow, Benny Hill, thank you so much for the $19.99 donation. Thank you. I really appreciate it. That always helps me out, especially with the horse estate restoration thing, because that's been super expensive. But good sir, to answer your question,
my overpayment,
yeah,
it was pretty substantial, up to 59,000 to be exact, in that range.
Mhm.
But I initially asked them to forgive it because it would have been a big hardship on me, because
Sure.
wow, they were taking everything. They said, we're not going to pay you 0.
Right.
And I didn't know that. And they said, well, if you have an overpayment, you get zero.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't know that. I didn't know that. And my attorney said, oh, yeah, well, okay. Thanks for telling me.
So the way it works is this: you've got to contact the local field office and ask to speak with essentially the person who's going to potentially process your 632 overpayment application. And what you're going to do is request that basically they finalize adjudication on it. If they're unwilling to touch it, unwilling to do anything with it, then you have to reach out to the regional field office and ask for them to take over the claim and go ahead and render a decision on it. They may come back to you and say, no, we want you to just pay the whole thing. They may come back and say, okay, we'll reduce it by 20,000 or 30,000 or whatever. But you have to begin the negotiation process to try and get that reduced, because otherwise you're going to be stuck with the 59K overpayment and just paying that off over the years, you know?
Okay. Well, I mean, they've never sent me no more letters for adjudication or anything on it, period.
Yeah, you want to call them.
You know,
yeah, check in, push the envelope a little bit to get them to go ahead and respond to it, because remember, they have a lot of paperwork flowing through that office, whether it's in digital form or physically as paper. So they may have just honestly not done anything with it. The other side of the coin is, to some degree, you really should look at essentially appealing that overpayment, submitting a 561 form to go ahead and try and get that reduced at all. Was the overpayment your fault or was it their fault? Because I mean, you said that you went into a ticket to work program, which means they should have known,
I tried. I did try. I think it was their fault. I did. I went back to work. I sent them my paycheck stubs. I called them, went through all the things, and I think it was their fault. They sent me a letter years ago saying, this has been about 2 years ago, saying, yeah, it was your fault. That's what they said.
They said it was your fault.
They allege it was my fault. Didn't come out and prove it. And I said, yeah, the overpayment was your fault. But it was actually their fault. This has been in 2002. I've since I had a fire. My ex-wife had burned all the paperwork, and it's non-existent anymore. So I don't know.
Gotcha.
But I assume a lot of it was their fault. I mean, through no fault of my own. And all of a sudden, one day, I get a letter in the mail saying we overpaid you by this much. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. It was just an error, probably on both my part and their part. So I really don't know, but I did ask for them to forgive the overpayment and or reduce the amount, because it would be a hardship on my case.
Yeah. And
I followed their 30, 60, 90-day rules, all that. I went by the forms that they sent me. So, and one more quick question:
sure.
Will this follow me in? I had a review. It said 3 to 5 year review, which my case was won in 2021, December of 2021. So, and I'll be 60. I'll get to my 67-year-old date coming up 5 years or whatever. I'm 60. Be 61. Will this waiver thing still follow me if they don't do nothing about it? Will it follow me into my Social Security, regular Social Security?
What you're asking is,
if they don't do nothing about it?
Will the overpayment follow you, is what you're asking, into basically retirement?
That's what I'm saying.
It follows you for sure, because it's all federal benefits, and that overpayment is where you owe funds to the United States Treasury, and they always get paid back. So kind of the bottom line is, it will follow you into retirement. But I used to do overpayments where I would fight them and fight the government. I've had quite a few. I mean, we had one that was over $100,000 that was forgiven, but the point is, you can beat them. It's not this impossible thing. It's just, the reason attorneys don't do them is that they don't, claimants can't pay the attorney $250 an hour to work on it, process it, etc. So there's just no money for the attorneys to actually help the people to go ahead and beat these overpayments. And it's in the best interest of the government to continue to charge those claimants that they, put an overpayment on. But kind of the bottom line is this: you should immediately call them tomorrow and ask for somebody to finalize a decision, or at least release a notice to you where they have finalized a decision on that ruling on the overpayment 632 that you submitted for the waiver, partial or full. And then if they say, you know, we already did, here it is, you can always submit a 561, which is basically an appeal on your entire overpayment. And you'll get in that notice specifically their reasoning as to why they felt you were in error. And that's what you'll begin, you know, designing your defense on against their claim that you owe them money. So, yeah.
Oh, okay, I see. Well, I've been looking in their Palms manual too. That's a lot of people don't know about that, but I've been researching in that too on this. So, okay, well, I'll get off here and let somebody else go. I just want to get a kind of a brief on what to do next. I don't have an attorney since after the 2-week deal that I got approved. He said sign Nora. So, okay, well, I appreciate it, Walter, and I did give you a 5-star rating on the deal.
Thank you, good sir.
All right, I'll get off here. I appreciate all your help. Thank you.
You have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
All right, you too. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. So one of the things that's happening, and I just want to take a quick side note here, and then I want to call specifically my buddy who gives us a security expert update on what's going on in the world, because that helps define fixed income people. You know, it helps tell them what's going to be happening with their benefits in the sense of, you know, war in, you know, on Earth and how it interacts with the United States. I just want to point out one thing. Unfortunately, Social Security disability claims, people representing disability claimants, it's shrinking and shrinking and shrinking because the Social Security Administration has not raised the cap. And as a result of that, they just raised it like literally today, this morning, it was released that they're going to raise it to $7,200 from the $6,000 cap. But the problem is that disability attorneys really don't make enough per claimant. And as a result of that, more and more people are pulling away from disability benefit representation. So kind of the ultimate thing here is when you hear people go, hey, this attorney represented me, but then they wouldn't help me with their overpayment, I always kind of give advice and guidance to people I've already represented. And if, you know, basically somebody I represent, there's no back pay, there's an $1,800 provision in the contract where I get paid $1,800, but I'm always losing money with that. So the unfortunate thing about this is that you're going to be seeing disability attorneys helping claimants less and less and less with the auxiliary parts of their claim, where there might be an overpayment or something weird happens or whatever. And the disability attorneys are going to focus on solely that only representing them to be found disabled part, because that's just realistically, we don't make enough. We're just not making enough per claim. We have to do all this stuff, submit all these motions, submit briefs, and the amount of time that we have to spend does not equate to the money that we should be earning to represent people. So that's kind of the issue that we're seeing with this industry. Now, with that said, I'm going to go over to, I see a bunch of people calling in. I'll try and catch up with you after we catch up with the security expert. Well, I'll take one more phone call. Hi, this is Attorney Walter Hnot, Disability Resolution PA. Remember to use a fake name throughout this. We are live on YouTube. Would you like me to answer a specific question, or would you like me to go ahead and run hearing questions with you?
Are you speaking to me?
Yes.
Hello?
Howdy. How you doing?
Oh, hi. Thank you for taking the call. I have a specific question. Where do I start? I was on SSI for many years. I'm in recovery 39 years, so you understand where that started from.
Sure.
Okay. When I turned 65, I got called down, and they said that they had made a mistake, and Social Security, and that I should have been on SSDI. Well, I had never paid into the system, but this is the craziest story, I had been in my father's custody. Now I'm going back many years, and he was on disability, and I had a traumatic thing happen, but I got it through him. So now they went back and removed my SSI and put me on my father's SSDI. It was almost about the same amount because he had died in in the early 70s.
Okay.
So my check is like nine and change.
Mm-hmm.
How does anybody live on $900? It's really impossible, and my health really isn't that good. I'm 69 now, so don't have family. I'm going out and I'm trying to find any kind of cashier jobs, anything,
mm-hmm.
just to survive, and they're on the books.
Mm-hmm.
I think I read somewhere, but please interpret this for me, because I'm definitely afraid that eventually, I need the Medicaid, because I know, we're all going to die, that I'll probably wind up in a nursing home, and I need the Medicaid. But there's, even with assistance, food stamps or whatever, I cannot live on $900 or $923.
Mm-hmm.
So I had gotten an offer to work full time, even though I'm in constant pain, and it's almost unbearable for me to stand on my feet 8 hours. I've been working part time. My fast question is, could my benefits be taken away from me? I'm so scared well, obviously they're on the books. I pay taxes.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first time, though, these last 2 years, because I did have, someone helping me, but he died. And, here I am, 69 years old with $900 a month, no family, and not feeling sorry for myself. Just, my health isn't really great. I have a lot of issues,
mm-hmm.
Relating pain and RA and spinal stenosis and the whole thing. So if I can push myself to work, am I allowed to work?
Yeah, for SSDI benefits, you can work. But remember, you got the three main there's more, but three main programs, which is the trial work period. You get 9 months where you can earn over SGA, keep the benefits and the money. You got the extended period of eligibility where you can work for 36 months and keep your benefits so long as you earn under SGA, the $1,350 per month.
Wait, say that again. As long as I'm under what? Sorry. I thought at 69 there was no budget, that you could make as much as you want.
So you're over. So you're receiving retirement with a boost of, I'm guessing,
through my father.
Yeah, your attachment. Yeah. So
as a child back in the 60s, this is the craziest.
Yeah, you weren't getting SSDI benefits from your father. You were getting what's called disabled adult child benefits.
They made a mistake. They put me on SSI. Don't forget, I was one of the first people put on it. That was 1973.
Yeah, that's the beginning. Of the program.
Yeah, I remember when they made the transition, but that's a whole other story. I won't take up time.
Yeah. You got to see Nixon make it. Yeah, that's awesome.
20 years later.
Yeah.
They tell me you've been on the wrong program. Well, that was their fault. I could have gotten Medicare that whole time
and more benefits.
If only. So can I? And then I have one other question I have to ask you. Can you believe it? This is a window open where I live. Okay,
sure.
So can I make earn, if I were able? I mean, I can't stand that or a length of time. Plus, it's not easy to get a job. But if I could get somehow, maybe work from home or whatever, get a full-time job, and that would only be minimum wage at best, or maybe 16, 17 an hour. Would I lose that SSDI at 69 years old?
So I'd have to look into DAC.
Don't forget, they made the mistake. Excuse me?
Well, yeah, the mistake isn't really going to affect this, because remember, the SSI conversion into DAC, disabled adult child benefits, that mistake is kind of, it's over. Like, it's done. Like, you transitioned from Title 16 SSI over to Title 2. So the point is, at this point, the question, your legal question is, if I'm receiving retirement / DAC benefits, what restrictions do I face with earning money? And as a result of that,
Right.
yeah, what could potentially reduce my benefits? So
other than losing my Medicaid, which is a big thing.
right.
That's
So
a huge thing. Yeah. Because you know what's going to happen. I can work maybe 3 months and I get sick and I've got to stop. And this is back and forth and back and forth. But, you know, I do the best I can. I mean, I'm just basically like anybody else trying to survive. Could they take that? Yeah.
The first thing that I would look into is basically, depending on how much you're going to be earning, there's a tax threshold, meaning like you would start getting taxed at a certain level. And then with disabled adult child benefits, DACs,
that's what I got. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me just check something real quick. I just
They
want to.
said to me, as long as, and they found it to be true, my original claim was under my father. I was 16. I'm now 69. I know this is the craziest story in the world, but it's true.
Yeah.
So then when he died, I was put on SSI.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I was in and out of hospitals having a lot of problems. And then, you know, it's like I woke up in my 60s when reality hit me like, oh, my God, I'm in my 60s and I'm getting, not what I say, 900 and change because I also had an overpayment.
Right.
They're taking $25 a month. I think I owe maybe $200 more. But they took 10%.
Now, you said Medicaid. Are you on SSI or are you receiving actual retirement and DAC benefits?
I'm receiving not retirement because I'm receiving my father's retirement.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. So you're getting an SSI.
Back into
yeah.
Yeah.
God,
he retired in the 70s, so it's not that much money.
Okay, so you're getting that.
So when I work, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. When I work, I mean, it would never, I can never get that amount bumped up, right? Like it's just going to be that forever, other than the COLA increases.
Well, yeah, I mean, you'll get a cost of living adjustment boost. All right, so this is a complicated thing because you're no longer in the disabled category. You're in the old age category receiving SSI. You converted your Title 16 from disabled to basically old age supplemental security income. And then on top of that, they supplemented your SSI with essentially DAC benefits to get you to $900. So the bottom line is, and I guess my real question is, and your question is, if after converting your SSI Title 16 benefits from disability SSI over to old age SSI, do the income restrictions still apply, and how do they change? Is that kind of your question?
Yeah, there is that, and then I have the other question. Well, let's deal with that first because the other one is the tax shelter. Are you familiar with that? No one ever mentions it. That you know where I'm going with this. That new ABLE program, which is the most confusing thing in the world. So you know, you're familiar with the ABLE program, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that it's like a tax shelter. You could save money up to $150,000 a year. Who has that kind of money? But some people do, and their children are born, you know, whatever, and they're able to put that away and use it for anything that's personal for the person. The only thing is, we are not allowed. I read that in fine print to put it. We're not supposed to make the deposits ourselves. So if I'm working, I'm not technically supposed to. I sent them a money order once, and they just held it. That it's the craziest program. So I'm supposed to get a third party to deposit money in there. Yet they call it a legal tax shelter if you're on SSI. I'm not on SSI, but any of the any of these programs, these disability things. It started in Virginia, and now other states are picking it up. So that's another thing. I guess when I die, they'll take that back. I'm not worried about that. I guess I am worried about that because I'm just trying to live, and I'm I'm worried about them taking it from me. I mean, that's all I have is the 900. Or sometimes I say, gee, I just wish I was healthier and stronger and just work and never have to look over my shoulder and worry constantly. It's like when you're on these programs, you're constantly in fear.
Okay.
So I work and make all,
Okay. Let me answer the first thing, which is yes, your SSI has limitations as to income that can be earned because it is supplemental security income. So, you get $85.
It's not SSI. It's SSDI. It's the only thing that they said differentiated it, after 30 years that I was on it. I had to prove, which I did, that I originally became disabled before I was 18, which I did. Right? Remember, living with father, 16, he got disabled. He had a couple, and then I was with him.
Yeah, that's not SSDI benefits though. That's DAC benefits. Where up to 22, and they changed the statute, but up to 22, you have to prove that you were basically disabled between essentially 18 and 22 to go on to your parents' benefits as a disabled now adult child.
Well, they were dead. My father was dead. Who said they didn't even have their records. So, but they knew I was on. They had proof. The computer that it doesn't miss anything. So, but they converted me over. I got a check one day that said, congratulations, we owe you $10,000, and the next day it said, oh, and you owe us 11. So it went from. Like I said, I never heard of anything like so crazy, but that's what they did.
So let me.
I don't know if it was to my advantage or not. The only thing is I could have gotten Medicare all those years.
Okay, let me do this. Go call the local field office and get an accounting letter for which programs you're on, because what I think you think you're on is not actually what you're on. I think you're on a combination of SSI that's supplemented by DAC from your parents. But what you're saying is you're on SSDI plus DAC.
No, I looked it up. I go online. We can go online now. You know that, right? And see every check, everything. Okay,
I got it. But let's do this. Send me the notice that shows me what programs you're actually on, because
it's SSDI. I don't think you can go on two programs.
Of course you can. Of course. They have hybrid allowance programs. And the fact that you're on 900 almost certainly says to me you're SSI plus DAC. Yeah.
Huh.
I would call the local field office. You might be surprised because you keep saying you're on these programs. And I'm like, that's not right. Those don't equate to that.
Walter, I'm like everybody else listening to this call, scared to death to start to deal with them.
So
you know what I mean?
Let's do this. Give a call, and then we can always do another thing on Able. But and I got to call the security expert too, because he always gives us an update on Thursdays. Go grab the letters that show what benefits you're actually receiving at this point from the Social Security Administration. It's almost certainly two programs.
I have it right here. I printed it out because I had to give it to something. SSDI.
Okay, then shoot me an email with it so that I can see specifically which ones you're on, and then I can kind of advise you.
It just says one and the amount. That's all. It says you get on the of the every month, such and such an amount, SSDI, and that's it. Don't forget, I'm 16. Huh?
At the very, very top of that sheet, does it say retirement, survivors, disability insurance?
It says survivors. Let me get it. I don't want people holding. I should have had the letter here. It's survivors. Just quickly pull it out. I don't want to put people on hold.
I tell you what, let's do this, because at 9 o'clock I was supposed to call a security expert. Grab the most up-to-date thing. Shoot me an email with it so I can at least see what programs you're on. Because
I have it right here. Okay, got the paper. All right, let me tell you what it is. If you give me 1 second, and I appreciate the time. Thank you. It says to help older people living with disabilities. How much you get? Here it is. Price of cost, how much you get? Does it even say the?
It might not say the program because it might be multiple programs that pay into it. You get some benefits from some benefits from another, which is okay.
Well, if you want to go to work, I mean, these are printed. This was because it was beneficiary's name.
Let's do this though.
This was the increase letter. You know.
Let's do this though. Go ahead, give them a call, do a little research. The answer might not be on the mysocialsecurity.gov website, so you might have to call the local FO, the field office, and get an update from them. But go ahead and do a little research and then give me a call back or send me an email with specifically what programs you're on. That way I can give you better information, because I'm questioning which programs you're actually on. And to me, it sounds like one particular animal, that's 2 programs, but you're saying it's just 1 program. So I'm a little bit worried specifically.
Well, I'm hoping it says 1. If I'm on 2, then they'll start taking back, right? They'll say, how can you work? Barely. I mean, that's not, you know, we'd have no problem coming up with the medical, but
go find
I don't
out
even know why.
And then catch up with me with an email. But give them a call and ask them specifically what programs you're on, because they might have just simplified the website output too, or just sent you a simple.
Okay, I don't want to take up other people's time, but for everybody else, would you one day or maybe now discuss, if you want, or take another call, that the program that I just mentioned?
Oh, the Able? Yeah, I mean, I could do a video on the Able account. Yeah, I could always do a video on that. That's no problem. Yeah.
Okay, so you think that I'm on multiple programs? I would think I would be getting more money. I mean,
no, they're not stackable though. They only combine a little bit to help each other out. They just basically get you to around $900. That's the whole point of the hybrid allowance. Like that's why when you see like VA benefits and SSDI benefits, those are stackable. But when you see essentially like SSI and some other program, it's just a hybrid allowance where they're giving you a little bit more money to get you boosted to the point where you can have a livable amount, even though
another crumb. Let me ask a question. Are we allowed to work at 69 years old or 70 or 71? If, by God's grace, we can do it somehow, are we allowed to?
That's not really the question. The question is, how much can you earn per month and how it will limit your benefits going forward, which I got to know which programs you're on. Yeah. But let me call the security expert real quick, because he was waiting for us around 30 minutes ago. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate this, Walter. And I listen to you, and thank you for all you're doing for us.
Absolutely. You have
I'm serious.
Yeah, absolutely. You have
and I gave you a good review too.
Thank you.
I did. Yeah. Thanks much.
Have a wonderful night.
Okay. Okay, you too. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, let me go ahead real quick and call the security expert so that we can get him on the phone and get a quick update as to what's going on over there. We're not getting much news coverage at this point. I don't know if you noticed, but the whole Ukraine situation is just, I saw some drones were donated and things like that, but I'm hoping we can get a little bit more of a current update specifically as to what's going on with the drone situation, with what's happening with Ukraine, because that is going to largely dictate what happens with the international currency of the yuan versus the American dollar. Howdy, good sir.
Very good, very good. Thank you for taking our call. I think we're just going to verify. 1 second, please.
Perfect.
Iridium next. Iridium next 157, 157, final handoff. That's you. Greetings, Walter. Thank you.
Absolutely.
On behalf of our organization, dedicated crews here and around the globe, we're pretty honored to share with you some of the events and a bit of intelligence that kind of impacted our world here. Today's the 126th day of the war since Russian forces invaded Ukraine. We're going to start off with Russia today giving up, in their opinion, and walking away from Snake Island, which has been under controversy for quite some time. The Russian Defense Ministry indicates that it was a goodwill gesture to show that Russia is not interfering with the United Nations' attempt to find space for Ukraine so they can export their agricultural products. So Russia's saying that they left on their own. Ukraine's saying early this morning they forced them off the island and they fled in 2 small speedboats following a barrage of Ukraine artillery and missile strikes. The occupation of Snake Island is pretty important. It controls the approach waters to Ukraine, last 3 remaining commercial ports, including its main Black Sea port of Odessa. We've talked about that previously, where a Russian blockade has, up until today, prevented grain exports from one of the world's main suppliers, being Ukraine. Just as a reminder, Snake Island is in the Black Sea. It's about 30 miles off the coast of Ukraine, and it's a small piece. It's only about 46 acres. Prior to the invasion, it was home to the Odessa National University research facility, and was also home to a popular lighthouse, which we can still see in the satellite images. It's amazing that both Russia and Ukraine have some sort of respect for this lighthouse that was put up in 1842 for the Russian Empire Black Sea Fleet, still visible. Mm-hmm. So we move on to the Madrid Summit that took place over the last 3 days. There's like strong unity of NATO partners. They met to discuss a standard list of things, but they added in a few extra pieces, and then the speeches were very important. We'll touch on just a few of them. Some of the things that the 3-day conference or summit included were strengthening NATO's long-term defense and deterrence, creating sustaining support for Ukraine, launching NATO's 2022 strategic concepts, as well as reinforcing partnerships and maintaining an open door, adapting to threats and challenges from all directions, and real important is the transatlantic unity and alliance solidarity for maritime purposes. We come first to the NATO chief, Jens Stoltenberg. So there's a real possibility of war between NATO and Russia. In his final speech today, he was indicating we live in a very dangerous world. We have a full-scale or large-scale military operation war going on in part of Europe, and if it gets worse, his concern here is the suffering, damage, death, destruction will be much worse than we've seen anywhere. They also pledged more support to countries in Africa and the Middle East to counter China and Russia's influence. Some of his parting comments were interesting. He indicated that Russia's nuclear rhetoric is reckless and dangerous. And then he added, lastly, that Sweden and Finland on this coming Tuesday will sign the documents with NATO to become NATO state partners, and they're pretty excited because it's already been ratified by all 30 allied parliaments to allow both countries to become new partners, and the Nordic countries were officially invited to the alliance, followed by a memorandum signed by Turkey, Finland, Sweden, and it included arms exports in the fight against terrorism. And it was really interesting. Turkey did sign on, and it was unexpected, but they've made this memorandum a big piece, and it's pretty important. Then we go back to the war, and Chief Stoltenberg said President Putin has to withdraw his forces and end this immediately. His quote is, NATO has to provide support to Ukraine, but also has a co-responsibility to prevent an escalation beyond Ukraine. So the concerns we start to see are other countries where, we'll get to it, but Moldova, Romania, up in the Baltics, we still have Estonia, who already is a NATO partner, but it's just not. There's a lot of taunting taking place. I don't want to call it saber rattling. Actually, we're going to go with the words taunting, which came out of the shop, or actually out of 2 shops that agreed, and we'll come back to it. Turkish President Erdogan called for intensified efforts to end the war in Ukraine, as there are, quote unquote, no losers in peace. And really nice words. He said Turkey was trying to find a balanced policy on the Ukraine war because of its heavy reliance on Russian energy. So they're kind of between a rock and a hard spot. But we were pretty impressed to hear his final speech with "There are no losers in peace." Lastly, the United States President Joseph Biden announced at the summit an additional $800 million in military aid to Ukraine.
Wow.
And again, the United States, his quote is, again, the United States is leading the way. We've provided Ukraine with nearly $7 billion in security assistance since I took office. New advances of, and this continues, new advances of Western air defense systems for Ukraine, more artillery, ammunition, counter battery radars, additional ammunition for the HIMARS. The HIMARS are the high mobility artillery rocket system that they've been looking for in Ukraine, and they can fire up to 6 rockets, and they're very mobile. So back to President Biden's quote: "We've already given Ukraine more HIMARS, and they'll be coming from other countries as well." Biden also said that the United States will support Ukraine in its fight against Russia invasion for as long as it takes. Looking at the impact Ukraine has on Russia, Russia had to renege on their national debt for the first time in 100 years. They were unable to make their national debt payment. The United States president also said Russia is facing trouble maintaining oil production and its military systems, but I think we're quite aware of that. And now we come to the Russian side of this whole equation. Russia today began shipping grain from Ukraine's occupied territory with a vessel carrying 7,000 tons of grain sailing away from Ukraine's occupied port of Verdansk. Verdansk is a port city on the north coast of the Sea of Azov, just north of Mariupol. We've spoken about it before, but Russia has control of it now. And what they've done is now they're taking the grain that they've claim to have found in the region, and basically they're being charged by the Allies of stealing grain from southern Ukraine and contributing to a global food shortage caused by the grain exports being blocked. So by leaving Snake Island, this is their goodwill, as they claim, for the shipment that went out today from Verdansk. And it marks the opening of a sea route to export wheat from Ukraine to third world countries. Apparently there's been months of delays, but this is the first merchant ship that's left, and the Russian administration will not say where it's going. They're just indicating it's going to friendly allies, is all they'll say. Obviously, I'm sure the ships will be tracked in multiple manners in the shops here. It's almost a moot point between satellite imagery and marine intelligence. Russia's Black Sea ships are ensuring the security of the journey, and they're adding that the Ukraine port has been demined. So they've gotten rid of all the mines that were placed in and around the port of Verdansk to ensure it could get out safely. And again, they're not specifying their final destination. Then we move over to Dmitry Medvedev, the deputy chairman of Russian Security Council. And his statement for today in the last 24 hours was, I would like to point out, once again, under certain circumstances, hostile measures can also qualify as an act of intentional aggression and even a cause belli, which is a Latin term. And we're trying to figure out why he just didn't say justification or provocation for an act of war, but he decided to go with the Latin term. Apparently they're upset. Russians are upset and said that continued support by the United States in weapons and other countries, in fact, could bring about a cause or an act of war, as this cause belli. Then we end up with the Russian Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov. We've spoken about him before, and he's talking about an iron curtain was falling between Russia and the West. Concerning the Iron Curtain, he says, I agree with Vladimir Vladimirovich, who's the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Essentially, the curtain is already descending on the West, and they should be careful not to get jammed into it, but the process has already been launched. We're not trying to translate Mr. Lavrov's comments regarding him or Mr. Makey, who's also known as Vladimirovich, the Minister of Foreign Affairs. This Iron Curtain is an interesting statement tied into the statement from Medvedev regarding the internal aggression, the intentional aggression could cause an act of war. So we're trying to put it together, and then we come back to just within hours, a Putin ally, Mr. Vodolin, who's a member of the Ukraine Armed Forces, who served, and he indicated, the Russian gentleman allied to Mr. Putin, Mr. Vodolin, said members of the Ukraine Armed Forces who served in the Azov Regiment will face trials. Vodolin is the Speaker of the lower house of Parliament. He says these soldiers have blood on their hands, and it's really moving along to where they have two Brits that were taken into custody, and I think they were soldiers, and we've talked about this in the past, that they were taken as prisoners. There was like a mock trial. They're going to be executed. We have the European Court of Human Rights, ECHR, has ordered Russia not to execute the two captured British soldiers, and the Kremlin responded by saying the fate of the two Brits was a matter for the authorities of the new self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic. So now they're instituting an authority in the areas that they're in now in the Donetsk region. The fights continue on many levels. Too great for us to touch on. There's just full-scale fighting from Belarus border all the way down to the seas of Azov, over to the river, Dnipro River. What we're finding, and this occurred in the last 24 hours, is Russia's using old missile stock that's inaccurate. So if they're trying to hit a target, they previously were using the missiles that kind of had the ability to get there. But what they're finding out is 50% of its strikes in Ukraine, they've doubled up the rockets they're sending because they're not hitting the targets or not detonating properly, according to a brigadier general that we had contact with in Ukraine armed forces earlier today. So these are the Western missiles that hit an array of targets in recent days, but they hit that shopping center, and they claim, no, the shopping center was empty, and that's not what we're really aiming for. We're aiming for a military arms target. You mean the old railroad factory? No, there's arms in there. So in recent days, shopping center in the city of Kremyachek gets hit, and it killed 18 people with 40 people still missing. Fire department's in there, and just a day ago, they were searching through the rubble. They found 4 of the folks, but they're still missing 36. Kremyachek is an industrial city in central Ukraine. It stands on the bank of the Dnipro River. We know we've talked about the Dnipro before and trying to not allow the Russians to cross it. The city has a truck plant, an oil refinery, one of the oldest railroad car building works where they build the railroad cars. But they also have a hydroelectric power plant, which in theory could have been a target, not too far away from. It's in the city. And it crosses. They also have the power plant that's there is hydroelectric from the from the Dnieper River. And clearly, these are possible targets that Russians were trying to get to. So when we go further east into that region, the governor of the Dnieper region, the governor reports a quote-unquote enemy attack. Said rescue workers were searching under the rubble in the city of Dnipro. The Russians had killed civilians deliberately is the allegation. And Moscow said, no, we hit that army depot and the mall, the shopping center was empty. Well, just in the last few hours, we were able to, with 100% validity, indicate that Moscow's statement of hitting an arms depot or a factory and an empty shopping center have been proven with 100% validity inaccurate.
Wow.
Photos recovered from the shopping center clearly show purchase receipts made at the mall or shopping center at the time or right near the time of the attack, clearly displaying the shopping center was occupied and was open for business. Customers inside. Satellite imaging using really precise measurements from the factory that they allege is some sort of arms. Russia indicates was a factory. It's 500 meters from the mall. So even if they hit the factory, they missed by almost a third of a mile. So
wow.
Yeah. According to some independent military experts and researchers from MOFAR, the explosion that took place could not have provoked a fire strong enough to reach the mall building or the building of the factory. So the rockets that they were using were actually fired on this. MOFAR, and we always attach our partners. MOFAR is a global open source intelligence community in one of our peer organizations. And they did the measurements, and the satellite imaging came from one of their vendors. We were able to use that to validate some of the information. We actually have pictures of the receipts from inside the shopping center at the time of the attacks that we're able to share with them. But it's the denial is just something that's hard to understand. Ukraine President Zelensky called the attack on the shopping center a deliberate terrorist attack, and the Western leaders and Pope Francis joined him in basically condemning the attack. Russia obviously has denied it, says it only hits military infrastructure. Earlier this month, the United Kingdom Defense Ministry said that the Russian bomber aircraft that they had been using recently had likely been launched, and they were from the 1960s era. And the anti-ship missiles against targets on the ground in Ukraine that they're trying to use are from the 60s. So they don't have the precise ability, and we're getting the facts pretty straight that it doesn't really seem to care.
Yeah.
I don't want to say our general, but Ukraine Brigadier General Oleksiy Havrov reported to us earlier just today. Russia was trying to hit military and critical infrastructure, but the use of these old missiles are creating a lot of loss of life for civilians. They're hitting apartment buildings, they're hitting homes, they're hitting other places. The Brigadier General said 202 missiles had been fired in Ukraine just in the second half of June, which is an increase of 120 from the first half. What we're finding is, according to the Brigadier General, is they've hit 68 civilian sites in the second half of the month. So these older rockets that they're using obviously are not hitting the targets they're looking for. The targets remain. The general said to us the targets remain military facilities and infrastructure, transportation networks, but at the same time, poorly targeted strikes are hitting our civilians who are trying to leave the area, who are a quality of life, and he indicates 50% of their rockets are not not hitting targets that they should. We're going to move from there to we spoke, I think, briefly their last call. I think we were unavailable. I think we had something going on, but we did contact, tried getting word out regarding the longshoremen in the Pacific Coast from Bremerton, Washington. There were 30 ports with the longshoremen and warehouse union, as well as the Pacific Maritime Association had 22,000 workers that control the docks. Their contract expires at midnight tonight.
Oh.
And they've been working on it since May. When we think about the impact, without the longshoremen, these boats, regardless of what they contain, that are arriving here for the distribution of everything from raw materials to finished products that go on our retail shelves, it's the longshoremen and warehouse union, as well as Pacific Maritime Association, and it expires at midnight. What we were able to verify just in the last few hours, and they understand the timing is critical, but apparently they have an agreement to focus and stay committed to working without the contract, as long as both the unions and their contractor, whoever they're contracting with, depending on representation, continues in good faith. So they've agreed to work through a contractless error. This contract that they're under was slated to expire in 2019, and they voted to extend it, but they were not, when they were asked by the PMA to Pacific Maritime Organization, which is the other party here, when they asked for another year extension, it was declined, and it was time for a new contract. So they're operating in good faith in the 29 ports. I think it's something we need to pay great attention to, because if this is the method of bringing everything on board here into the United States, it's important. It's every port, every West Coast port. But it sounds to our shops here, for those who have interaction, they're looking to identify safety, number one, wages, benefits, jurisdiction, and then technology is a priority for the new contract. So they're concerned about automated equipment being used to replace folks who can run the sky cranes. So it's an interesting piece, but they're working through it. Lastly, we're just going to touch on a few countries with a brief update. North Korea has identified, according to North Korea, just got to remember who we're talking about here, has identified the source of COVID-19 outbreak in their country. They said it was 3 citizens touching, quote unquote, alien things near the border with South Korea. So we had to take a look to see if they were talking like alien, like UFO alien. And basically it came down to an 18-year-old soldier, a couple of children touching some sort of material near the South Korean border on the side of a hill. And that's about as much as North Korea wants to share with us about their recent COVID outbreak that had everybody locked down. China has a U.S. aircraft carrier, what they call Killer. We actually have a quote. It says, "We know that China has the most advanced ballistic missile force in the world," says a retired U.S. Navy captain, former senior intelligence officer with the U.S. Pacific Fleet. They have the capability to overwhelm the defense systems we are pursuing. We then moved down to Shanghai, and China's military said on Saturday that a recent fly-through by a U.S. maritime plane through the Taiwan Strait deliberately disrupted the regional situation and endangered peace and stability. This is that Taiwan Strait that we've talked about between Orchid Island and actual Taiwan. We do have a quote from Colonel Xia Yi, spokesman for the Eastern Theater Command of the People's Liberation Army, PLA, says that organized air and ground forces to monitor the U.S. aircraft operation has taken place effective immediately. He added that they firmly oppose the actions by the United States and that their troops remain on high alert. So Yeah, a little different. But Taiwan turns around and says, hey, China has increased the number of flights, military flights, in Taiwan airspace that nobody's supposed to be in. And so the analysts believe the move is designed to send a message to the U.S. rather than to threaten the island. But Taiwan Minister of National Defense says China flew 29 flights on Tuesday, and today, at last count, which was probably maybe an hour to an hour and a half ago, they had 22 flights that flew today. So, like, how much notice are you giving the U.S. if you're just pushing? We're going to look at Lithuania just briefly. A cyber attack was launched against Lithuania by a Russian hacking group, albeit one that denies a connection with Putin's government. It came out after the NATO members blocked Russia access to Kaliningrad, and a Russian hacker group known as Killnet. We've dealt with these folks before. They did claim responsibility for the attacks, claiming on a private channel that the attack was retaliation for Lithuania's decision to stop the transit of some goods to the Russian territory of Kaliningrad on the Baltic coast. So the question became, with NATO, is a cyber attack considered an attack on one of the members? And
everybody, yeah.
We really haven't.
What's the time? Yeah. What did they say with that? Because, I mean, that's going to dictate whether NATO gets pulled into this one way or another. And, I mean, obviously, an electronic attack, you know, it goes across boundaries very easily. Where are they leaning with that?
They just came out of the summit literally a few hours ago, the Madrid Summit.
You don't know? I'm just kidding.
We kind of do, but we can't really.
I gotcha.
Without that validity.
Right.
Yeah, right. So, lastly, Estonia was really upset because Russia was sending aircraft into Estonia and simulating missile attack exercises. So we've got the Taiwan Straits with Shanghai saying, "Hey, stop that! Don't fly there." And then we've got China flying through there anyway, and everybody's got a piece. And as we continue on, we do have something, and this will be our final piece. The Senate signed off late today, actually, on President Joe Biden's nomination to lead U.S. forces in Europe and be the NATO top commander. And they selected Army General Christopher Kolovi. He was confirmed. He'll work with the European allies to help Ukraine blunt the Russian offensive. They're excited. With NATO expanding Sweden and Finland in the wake of this invasion. Cavalli, who now is commander of the U.S. Armed Forces on the continent, will succeed Air Force General Todd Walters as the head of the U.S. European Command and NATO Supreme Allied Commander.
Wow.
The ceremony for General Cavalli assuming command, will take place tomorrow. He is a 4-star general, and he's fluent in Russian, and he has a master's degree from Yale in Russian Studies, and he served as a Russian director on the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the Pentagon, and also led troops in 2 tours in Afghanistan.
Wow.
I do need to just share the last 2 promotions that are tied to this. Lieutenant General Darryl Williams was confirmed to become a 4-star general and succeed Cavoli as commander of armed forces in Europe. General Williams, who is now the superintendent at West Point, the United States Military Academy, will be the first black general to hold this post. And from what I understand from the cadets that attend the United States Military Academy, this is a soldier who has risen through the ranks, and they have great love for Lieutenant General 4-star now, Darryl Williams. But we'll leave that, and Senate also approved Air Force Lieutenant General James Hecker's promotion to the ranks of 4-star, and he'll take over the U.S. Air Forces in Europe at the same time. And then we have Vice Admiral Stuart Munch was confirmed to be an admiral as the next commander of U.S. naval forces in Europe. So we've got these very bright, brilliant, educated command staff all coming into Europe at the same time. They share a great deal in common. They are very, very well known for their service and for their career of arms. And it should be interesting to see as these generals take control of the continent and the waters and where they're headed. But congratulations on behalf of our team to these folks who will be basically taking over collectively together. And I thank you for your time tonight, Walter. Do you have a softball question for me?
Oh God, a softball question. I've never given you a low rolling bowling ball of a question with bumper rails on the side. I've always given you the, fresh into the Yankees, hard hitting, here comes the pitch. So
yeah, and I tease you. We're good. I still have quite a few folks with me, which I thank them for staying. It's pretty neat when some folks will stay for what they consider their version of pizza.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I guess what I would say is this. What I'm hearing is changing of the guard. I'm hearing NATO considering how much of their foot is now going to enter into this because they've put every toe that they have on that foot already into it. So my question to you is, and I know you're restricted. I know, and I love this because we get to hear like tomorrow what will be on the news. We get to kind of hear from you. But my question to you is, NATO is going to enter this somehow. How is NATO going to enter this thing beyond just making donations?
It's a great question. And we took a look back to some of the NATO training going back to the last 12 months. And it's amazing how much training actually takes place with different units. It is open source. Folks can find what NATO's been doing, and it's all about the tip of the shoe. We talked about that, and we talked about if you tip across the border. So when we start hearing about the aircraft doing a simulated missile exercise, and they're over the border, that's not like that's that temptation, right?
Yeah.
And then when we hear, okay, a cyber attack, okay, what are we doing with that? We haven't really talked about that. Or when we go back to the original content of what they were meeting for in Madrid, what we see is, okay, we need a strategic concept and a plan. And everything that they've talked about is available. They're lengthy. They spent 3 days in the discussion. I imagine we'll see some of the speeches that were given that contain some of the content. But at the end of the day, how long? So if you want to tempt one country with cyber, now you're gonna mess around with flying your planes over here and your helicopters over there, but they're not really doing anything. They just don't belong there. And it's to the point where we say, the NATO chief, Jens Stoltenberg, says, is it time?
Oh, we're getting the good news. Here it comes.
Okay, you're not getting that here.
Okay.
Because what you're gonna hear is it's gonna come at a point where you can only tempt what you expect to come.
Mm-hmm.
And when it does, who's ready? Okay, so when one day we wake up and just keeping up with the 3 day Madrid Summit, in comments in live feed, and people there that were good enough to part of the team that's good enough to go, hey, how quick are we going to put this together, and who needs the info? Because the info at the beginning of the 3-day conference starts with strengthening and long-term deterrence and defense. Well, there's clients that need that. So we wake up one day and we find out that Russia's claiming they've got 6,000 Ukraine prisoners in their country, but we agreed to trade 144 soldiers, which took place. Well, why are you telling us about the 6,000 after you've just provided us with a swap of 144? And I think at some point, Boris from Britain was very vocal in his comments. They've got 2 Brits that they're trying to get out of the country. They've been told repeatedly from everybody from human rights to Nato that this has got to be not an execution. It's just not going to be an execution. Okay. If something happens to these 2 guys, I don't know where you are. If something happens to these 2 Brits, I don't know. Are they considered prisoners? Are they considered? Nobody's not talking about the Geneva Convention. Nobody's talking about the things that are in place that are to safeguard these, whether they're conscripts or not. We don't know, but it's just the type of thing that. How many toes do you have to put over the line before somebody grabs the back of the boots and pulls you in?
I mean, they're running out of little piggies to count. I mean, they've gone through the first little piggy, the second little piggy.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And there's no barbecue here, so
right.
It's at the end of the day, when we hear the President of the United States indicating we've provided over $7 billion in security assistance since I took office, meaning that's a direct quote, just looking back. And they're in it for a reason. And we're starting to see people come out, military people come out, and everything from supply chain to transportation industries, fertilizer industries, food security. And it really involves so many aspects of the world that a lot of these folks and the CEOs of large companies, global leaders from other companies, what they're going to come up with is they're going to have to support Ukraine because they want to get Ukraine back into farming and back into wheat and grain. That's the bread basket. They want the neon gas, the commercial neon gas that's required for etching of microchips is almost exclusively a product sent and manufactured out of Ukraine. So we have a lot going on here. The microchips, grain, fertilizer, food shortages. We got a lot. There's a lot of moving parts here, and I cheers again to the shops that really dug in. But there's no but. They just did a great job this week. They did a great job, and I just really appreciate their efforts. But this is just the last 24 hours. This is the last 24 hours. So the thought behind it, Walter, is this is really dynamic. It's just really, really dynamic. I will come back to something that's near and dear to my heart, and it's not in the notes, and it's not from the shops. But folks, if you live in an area in your country has either hurricane, tornado, or severe weather, again, I I ask you to just consider the routes you'll travel, maybe purchasing a printed map or printing a map out either at the library. So in the event that the roads are closed, the trees come down. It's occurred in areas where I have family and friends. A brief storm came through and literally the roads were covered in fire rescue. Ended up having to cut the trees out just to get in and to help the folks. But again, you just get a go bag together, water, clothing, personal needs, sanitation needs, and just be aware. Just be aware. If you haven't figured out how to get the emergency broadcast signals, either through your phone, through an app, through your computer, or weather band radio, just be aware. This is really the time of year that failing to prepare is preparing to fail. Is that it? So if you would, please just consider making arrangements, everything from transportation to whatever your medical needs may be. And can I answer your question?
Yeah, no, I mean, ultimately it comes down to, is a Ukraine common nightingale and a Eurasia brown bear, who's going to win? But I mean, realistically, I mean, you've got the entire NATO farm and you've got the entire Russia, China, I guess to some degree, Africa / Middle East farm, and which barn animals are going to be the most effective? Which ones are going to die tragically? Is there a Swiss Bambi out there that we're just going to see a horrible situation with? But I guess no. It's always Bambi in Switzerland.
Too much time at Disney, yeah. Too much time at Disney. So I think so realistically, how you bring up an interesting point, because here we have the President Zelensky, Ukraine president, and we've got mixed troops on the ground. Right? Mm-hmm. We've got, God bless them, we've got veteran military guys, infantry guys, SWAT guys. We've got all kinds of folks who are going over to Ukraine to either train or fight, right? Mm-hmm. Or train a unit and fight with these guys. So how I kind of equate it is, and I'll paraphrase, because I got somebody saying, just say it. And so you got the big bear, and then you've got the lamb that's standing there, and the lamb or goat standing there, and he's kicking, right? He's kicking, and he's kicking in different directions, and it's working. But what nobody wants to talk about is what's standing behind the goat.
No, I mean,
and it's
the eagle.
It's the entire barnyard ready to kick the bear's butt.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. When you think about it, if we've been looking at the information, and we see what countries. Look at these unmanned drones, the Backtar 2s, the Backtar 3s, that can literally just fly in, or instead of just dropping a weapon. Okay, let's give one up. That one's kind of damaged. Let's fly that into an oil field. Okay, and the goat stands there and goes, "Hey, is that a plane overhead?" Okay, wonder where that came from. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like the kid going nana 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 to his children, and then you turn around behind him, and it's like his entire family going, "Yeah, you're not going to touch that kid for what he just did." This is different. Yes, Russia started as a incursion. It's an invasion. We know what it is. Yeah. Why are they flattening everything? That's their model, because it's easier to flatten everything, scorched earth, and then rebuild it the way they want. They've already installed government in one of the Donetsk regions. So what we end up happening here is truly the bear started poking. We saw it coming. We all saw it coming. The world saw it coming. Oh, we're just working on like weekend guard duty right on your border kind of deal. And as it turned out, the equipment was malfunctioning. It was too big, too little, too small. Their troops are deserting. The commanders are deserting. And now the only people we hear from now are the foreign ministers, the ministers of defense. It's sad. How long can this go on for? I think we're looking towards the end of the year, unless something substantial occurs. There is a concern for the health of President Putin. There's also a 100% validity. The person who carried what we call the nuclear football for the president in the United States, the nuclear football with the codes, the gentleman who was always seen with Mr. Putin, was found with multiple bullet holes in a pool of blood at his home.
Oh, wow.
And so that's, where do you go with that? No, the video, I'm sorry, the nuclear codes were not stolen. They're not saying anything to the effect of they were taken. Best guess is it probably changed immediately as soon as he was found in that state. And apparently he was very good friends with Mr. Putin. They had a good relationship. But here we are. So I think we have a lot to look at. There are other countries we have not talked about that are, we've got Iran, we've got Syria, we've got Israel, we've got these countries. Stuff.
I think what I'm hearing is, all of these think tank individuals on the NATO side are trying to pick what their best entrance would be if an entrance is required. And what they're worried about is Russia being backed by China, even though Russia just defaulted. They're wondering when China is going to start, doing to Russia what China did with the US. And with the yuan, becoming the new currency of that side of the world, of that side of the earth, I think that they're going to have a lot of financial power to fund a war and take on, what the role solely used to be of the USA. So if the USA wants to get involved, if China changes the yuan over to, basically, their currency for Africa, Middle East, and all those things, the other Asian countries and Russia, then I mean the U.S. has nothing to lose by going into that war other than nuclear, exchange, because at that point the leverage that America has throughout the world has been decreased significantly.
I think when we add in some of the variables that are taking place in the United States, my understanding from the financial, we call it the money shop. It's just easier to call it the money shop.
Mm-hmm.
That monitors. Apparently, they came out with the inflation rate for May
mm-hmm.
In the United States, and it was reported to be a 6%. And 6% for the month is just incredible to hear. If stock market, global stock market, but the Nasdaq, and it's just been wild is probably a good term to use, where it's up 600 one day and down 600 by the end of the day, and we're off the gold standard, and the only thing that we're kind of hanging on to is oil. And then oil just has been dropping in price. It was down to, I don't know what it closed at today, but the money shop's like, hey, oil's on its way down slowly. And nobody's really got a word to say about it. One of the questions that did come up from the money shop is if we're into our United States is into its reserve.
Mm-hmm.
When's that getting put back?
Yeah,
because it's in reserve for a reason, right? So kind of had to. They're scurrying around trying to figure out how that's going to happen and when it's going to happen. that money was that National Reserve for the United States was there for a reason. I don't know whether they're draining it out at 1 million gallons a month a day. I haven't heard. It kind of fell off the radar. Speaking of falling off the radar, you had asked a question, and somebody just handed me the paperwork. My apologies. Regarding why mainstream media is no longer covering Ukraine, Russia like it used to.
Yeah.
And the response from our group is when it goes on for a period of time, and like I said, we're 120 some odd days. So many other things are taking place in contemporary news that it almost becomes a disinterested piece. So we had two Supreme Court decisions come out today, which were the last two. One was an EPA decision regarding climate change, and I'm trying to think what the second one, the first one was this morning. We also had Roe versus Wade this week. We had something on gun control come through, and these are the things that mainstream media is following. Is mainstream media still following Ukraine, Russia? Yes, because of the impact and the ripple effect. But Roe versus Wade or gun control, I'll use those two, that are hot topics in the United States. And Supreme Court came out and ruled. The second. My apologies. The second decision that was from today was regarding whether folks who come across the border and request asylum can remain here or not. I think it was they were calling it Title 24, Title 18, Title 24, where they were told they had to go back to their country and wait there. And ultimately, Supreme Court ended up ruling today that they do not have to. They don't have to return to their country. Kind of interesting.
I mean, to me, to be fair, look, they're not showing Ukraine, Russia right now because they're trying to get rid of gun rights. They're trying to reduce people's abilities to actually defend themselves. They're trying to promote the identity that everybody's safe in the U.S. and that nothing bad could happen to them. They're trying to push that everything's cool right now going into the midterms. I mean, to me, yeah, you could say the Supreme Court is releasing big decisions. Sure. And I agree. That's huge. That's massive. It changes everything. But at the same time, we're facing a world war, which to some degree trumps, a couple of Supreme Court choices. So, I hear you. I guess what I would say is we don't see a lot of images of destroyed towns on the national media for Ukraine,
No, we don't, and it happens every day. And for a while, we were seeing it, and we were doing a great job of tracking the number of refugees that were leaving Ukraine and tracking the countries and their travel. We're tracking children to reunite them, and it still goes on. But where are they? Where are they? We're not hearing about. Yeah, we're just not hearing about folks who have traveled not only through, say, Moldova and Romania, but did they continue on in their travels? Like, do they land in a different country? And as a refugee, what are they being provided with? Because they're looking, they have no home, they have no clothing other than what they carried with them. Food is an issue. Food is an issue, and it's just, where's it going, and why aren't we seeing it?
Well, they get SSI here. Yeah.
Do they?
Yeah, they get a 7-year SSI provision where basically they tap into, because supplemental security income is like the blanket for receiving benefits to new immigrants, those who are basically from war-torn nations coming here. SSI is, a lot of people just think of it as like, for disabled or old age, but it's actually, it covers anything that they want to give money to. Yeah.
So by arriving here, just so I understand, because I think I may have missed this in our previous conversation. So by arriving here, they immediately start collecting money, food. I don't know if it's food stamps or electronic card in the United States. These are things do they get housing?
So usually what happens at the federal level is they'll try and put them at the top of the list for housing as a refugee, and they'll get SSI benefits. And then essentially there are state supplementals on top of that, depending on which state they end up in. But, remember, a lot of it is like they get dropped off in a state. It's like, they get dropped off somewhere, and then federal benefits, state level benefits, start to pop in. But yeah, that's how they exist. They get SSI. That's why claimants get so pissed off, because they're like, they get it instantly, and I've had to wait 3 years. That's why.
It's tough when you become the speaker and then suddenly you're speechless because you've learned something that is very humanitarian for people who are in a refugee situation. But we review your work. We review some of the messaging and your phone calls, and you and what you offer to these folks who are on the channel and listening. It is heartbreaking with some of the stories and that are real. There's no doubt that they're talking from their heart, but to get them through the process successfully and deservedly, because they've paid in or lost a family, whatever the situation is, that they're just, they're qualify for disability, Social Security benefit, whatever it is, and they fight, and you fight for them and provide this information, and it's humbling to us, the knowledge that you impart to them. But I guess we're just a little surprised. I got guys shaking their heads here who didn't know that you arrive as a refugee. Did you say 7 years?
Yeah, they have a 7-year they have a provision where basically they review them. They have extensions for refugees, because refugees are, they're not just immigrants. They're like, they're special. They got, something happened, so, they go through a review process, application, orientation. But for the most part, a lot of the Ukraine ones are coming here and getting, within a short period of time, SSI applied to them and then integrated through a bunch of things. So yeah, no, they because think about it, if you came here as a refugee and they're not all just coming here and becoming instantly homeless. Like, they're getting housing and they're getting supplemental security income to be able to survive. And they go through that's how they do it. That's why I haven't made a big video on that, because I've been nervous. Because, keep in mind, every once a week I get an angry phone call. The last week was funny. It was a funny angry phone call. She was
okay.
like,
if you need more angry phone calls, we can get our guys to start
perfect
pranking you. Time your time.
I got to do a video on it.
And that's a joke. We'd rather you spend the time with the folks that genuinely need your, on the call.
But this lady called in and she's like, you're controlling the machines and the machines are coming. And I was just like, man, I am not a Terminator. I do not have the body for that. It's just not, I can't make the metal look work. So, but yeah.
Is that still poison ivy on your hand?
A little bit. Yeah. I still have it. I still have poison ivy. It's miserable. I didn't even take on one part of the fence because I'm going to make a video explaining the one thing I was afraid of from the New Jersey horse farm. And there's one area of fence. We've sprayed it 3 times. The poison ivy has not died yet. We have put chemicals on it that are skull and crossbone chemicals, and the stuff still has not died. It's like the garden of the gods turns out to be poison ivy. I don't understand it. So I just,
can you burn it?
Well, no, there's a wooden fence under it. There's a wooden fence under it, so I can't.
I'd burn the fence down. And replace it.
Seriously. at this point, but see, that's the thing. It's $13 an 11-foot, rail. It's like 12 something bucks for the 7-foot pole or whatever with the 3, cuts out of it for the locust rail and pole system. It's just, it's so expensive, but it's one of those things where I'm just like, man, oh man, I'm gonna go back. All right, this is the plan. Because and I know it's a shitty plan, but the plan is I'm going to buy a special suit and then put the special, dishwashing gloves over the suit. And I'm just going to go in there and just keep pulling it until it's all the way down. And the weird thing is the most prevalent produce on the farm is poison ivy. Not that that's a produce, but the most prevalent thing that I could sell from the farm would be poison ivy. It's a useless asset, like some of these, coins, Bitcoins that are out there right now. But it is like if somebody wanted to buy, like literally lives through Armageddon poison ivy, I will pot them for you. I will spritz them with water. But it's bad. It's really bad. But other than that, most of the farm is getting 2 to 3 inch mowed, close mowed. We're spraying the fields to get rid of any unwanted plantation. We just had a haying where they baled a bunch of the hay. I don't know, they probably got like 40 giant rolls of hay out of the field. So they showed up with, oh man, this one guy showed up. It was just funny because one farmer showed up with the shittiest gear I've ever seen. Like I was like, man, there's no way that diesel's going to start. It started, but it was questionable. It was like, grandma's tractor. And then the other guy showed up with like, the double seat tractors with the double wheels. And, there's 2 seats in the cab. And then basically it's like this massive, like the newest, shiniest John Deere green you've ever seen. Like you look at it and you're like, wow, man, that thing was like polished, So then but it's just one of those gears. Honestly, I would love to get into farming at this point. Not that I don't love working with the government, yada, yada. But I would love to get into farming because that lifestyle is just so much more attractive than, the lifestyle of having to wait 6 months to 5 years to get paid for a claim that I won. So, I don't know if you saw it. Bill Gates just bought more land and, they all got pissy about it because Bill Gates just bought another, 2,000, or maybe, sorry. I think it was 20,000 acres or something. It was something ridiculous. And
Utah?
Yeah. And then they had like a whole thing about it, and all of this land is just getting shuffled into these like little corporations and trusts and things like that he just owns all of it. And people are like, and then what he does is he buys the land and then puts the people he bought the land from to work that land going forward. And people don't like that because it's just big money buying up what made America America. And I got to be honest, I see farming as literally the future of this country, especially when things get problematic, because when we start doing space travel, we're going to need more, products. However, they did just have a scientist come out with almost like a powder-like substance that they can make out of the elements pretty much in the air, which they can use to cook just like flour. So, I mean, that could replace a lot of this. But then again, who wants to eat space powder? I know some people who try to do that already, and it hasn't worked out well for them.
Hey, there was a guy I know who was working on the Space Constitution.
Yeah.
And before the country of Canada decides that they're going to do it.
Yep.
But I knew this guy. Yeah.
Indeed. Before Canada started making things illegal that they can't enforce.
Yeah.
So, they'll have to call Elon to check in on what's going on out there. So.
There's a launch from your Space Coast tomorrow.
Yeah.
But it's not one that says it's UAL.
Yeah.
Which has had some difficulty getting their rockets successfully into the air. One of the interesting things is when he does show for a space launch, we have a couch here, and he ends up on the couch. So he says he doesn't have a home. So he's like, hey, he's a couch surfer. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
He's safe.
Hey,
he's safe here. So
yeah.
It's,
Indeed. Well, I tell you what, good sir, it's 10:34 p.m. I have to go grab a burger and then come back and do some HIPAA violations and write a single brief, which I'm happy and excited to finally get that one puppy done. But I will thank you so much for coming on the show, because this information is always crucial. People don't realize like how amazing this stuff is and how important it is and how much time you put into bullet pointing it and getting it summarized. You know, I'm ready to do a military channel. Whenever you're ready, let me know. Indeed. Indeed.
Let me check with the team, and we'll figure out how that works out. And I think it's probably a great idea. But like I said, at the end of the day, I thank you for your time, and the team's pretty excited. And again, you do great service by allowing us to come out and share some of the info. And the folks who calls you take, you're patient, you're knowledgeable, and humble, and it's really a pleasure to work with you. Have the best day you can, sir.
Thank you, good sir. Have a wonderful night.
You too. Be well. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. So, guys, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and basically, so we're going to end the show there. I'm going to go grab a burger and then come back and keep working. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful night. A happy 4th of July. I'm going to go ahead and put up a few more videos throughout this period. I have been super duper busy because I just got back from New Jersey on Tuesday. It took from Monday to Tuesday because it's such a long drive. Kind of the bottom line is we are about to start taking essentially like requests to potentially rent a stall for the Marble Mountain Horse Estate. If you get a chance, go check out specifically the Marble Mountain Horse Estate. I don't know if it's showing up on Google yet or what the deal is or how it works. Yeah, Baconator. I'm totally into that. I might go Steak and Shake. I might get a steak. I might get a shaky bake. That's terrible. Anyway, so with that said, that sounds horrible. If this channel really helped you, if you like the content, please consider to go ahead and leave a 5-star review. That's how you do it. I will catch you guys a little bit later. Have a wonderful night. Thank you so much for hanging out. We'll go from there. Thank you so much, guys, and happy 4th of July. Alrighty, bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye.